Hello, everyone. This is Ohiro Oni-Eseleh once again, and it is my pleasure to have another guest today on this show to have a conversation with me about a subject that's not frequently spoken about, but which we all really need to be talking about more and more, especially because of the times that we are in. Because we all need to be able to learn how to take care of ourselves, whether in times of crisis or not. My guest is Cynthia Swangin, who is a university professor in New York City. And it is really my pleasure to welcome you, Professor Swangin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right. And today I really like to explore one of your areas of interest in scholarship and practice. Because I know that for you, this is more than just work that you do in research and a kind of scholarship. It is something that you practice, things that you execute in your own practice as a clinician. So I really would like to have a discussion with you. And it's also because last year when I hosted a conference, you were one of the presenters there. And so many people came to me and said, can you have her back next year for your conference? And I said I would, but unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we are not having that conference this year, but we have you today. So first of all, what are contemplative sciences?
So when you think of contemplative sciences, it's a way we focus on present moment and cultivating within ourselves insight and peace in this process. It's mind teaching that was drawn from ancient contemplative traditions such as Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and our modern mind sciences like psychology and neuroscience. And it combines the both disciplines in a way where you have that metacognitive understanding of self-regulation and existential awareness of who you are, what's your purpose in life. Contemplative sciences, it promotes within the individual emotional awareness. Like I mentioned, regulating your behaviors, your mind, thoughts, processes, what you do in terms of your actions, and it focuses your mind. It's very pronounced with children in terms of focus and attention, and for your overall health and well-being.
I know that you mentioned some religions, and then you mentioned psychology and so on.
Mhm.
Uh, and while I can relate to all of that because of my own profession and my own work, um, I know that some people just heard that and said, "Oh well, does not. It's not a practice that includes Christians and Muslims. It's a practice that's religion based and also psychology focused and so on." But that's not the point you're making.
That is correct. It's not. But that's like if you want to know what the definition is in terms of what the practice, where it came from, its origins. And again, Western philosophy, it's not about religion. It's really about just who you are and connecting your purpose with the universe. You don't have to have a religion, but that's what the contemplative sciences are. And research is growing in terms of meditation, in terms of what meditation is. You can pray without have to have a deity. You could just pray for goodness and wellness, and it's just the benefits. But that's the definition. There's no real universal agreement on what contemplative science is in terms of a definition. But it is a first person experience. It's very subjective to the individual, and each one of us is an individual. So yes, it does not necessarily have to involve someone in a religion, but that's just the origins of it. It's from the Eastern philosophy in which you're actually, and when I said the modern science of psychology, we are that three-part being. So you have to include the mind, the body, and the soul or the spirit. We all have that, regardless if you have a religion or not, and it's just joining the two together.
Right, that is correct because you have to know that if you are going to understand actually the process of human development, isn't that the case? Because it's in understanding all of those, areas, that make us who we are that you really get to understand how the human develops and how we travel our road and how we discover ourselves and how we live our lives. But I know that you actually do practice a religion. This is not your religion, so I want to make that clear. It's not about religion.
No, contemplative science is not a religion. Again,
Correct.
right, right.
And you do live as a Christian. I know that, but so why are you interested in this subject?
Okay, that's deep, and that probably will take another podcast session. But it stemmed very true from me just being a Christian. I also used to minister, and I also operated outside of my talent, which got me in a position of just again existentially, like, where am I, what do I really believe in? Because when I would teach out of the Bible, there was a time where I thought, wait a minute, God, but you said you've come for all, and certain, I want to say, not again, that certain religions have different, it's a business. They have a different interpretation, so they have different rules. And I being maybe the youngest, now here's my psychology child. I'm always, not really fitting into the rules very well, but it really, I grappled with, understanding, well, if it's an Asian, if it's an African, if we have different religions, what does that mean? So I had to go deeper because I wasn't getting it, in the church and in, operating, trying to be a pastor. I wasn't a pastor. I think I do better speaking to people one-on-one, trying to really follow what Jesus meant to me, and I wasn't getting those answers. And meditation, so learning through meditation, I had some personal experiences that, no one could take away from, and the understanding and the revelational knowledge that I got in being still and knowing that I am one with who I call, my Lord, which is Jesus, but understanding that, yes, all persons, you do not have to subscribe to Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or any, Allah, to understand that you have a connection. So, that I wanted to to really delve in more. And then I have children. I wanted, necessarily, I'm very proud of my background. The church was, necessary for me, but they don't have that experience, right now. And I still wanted to make sure that they had a connection with their higher power. And meditation was one way, that I've been doing that with my children, and also delving into metaphysics in terms of understanding the Bible in that way, because we are mind body experiences. To know that, I can really get the understanding through a practical experience.
So, in some respects, there is an argument that can be made that part of this discussion leads us to, if we wanted to pursue this further, might lead us into a discussion of what might be the difference between spirituality and religion.
Yeah.
Right. So, what I want to also know from you really is what might be some examples of contemplative sciences? You mentioned meditation.
Right. So, yes, there are different techniques, such as meditation. You have mindfulness-based practices. You have progressive muscle relaxation. You have yoga, loving kindness, all different types of meditations. And again, these are practices that intertwines, or yoga means yoking that mind and the body experience together, so you get the deeper understanding of sense of self. So those are the main practices, and the number one is meditation, or transcendental meditation, which really involves no religion at all. It doesn't have to, involve spirituality or a religion. And that's what's being used now in schools with children for their aggression, to combat violence and bullying in the schools, to regulate their, so they can self-regulate again themselves, their emotions, and be able to communicate better. And that was the other main reason why I was interested as a professor, in social work and human services. I see students who share stories that they are just, they're emotionally, I want to say broken, not, not you're able to be fixed, you're just broken, and they're unable, you cannot give something you do not have, and they were emotionally bankrupt, if I can say that. And in order to help in this human services, and that's social welfare, of the well-being of others, you have to be present for them. You can't you can't be able to join with them in their worldview to get an accurate assessment, so you can actually intervene and treat and diagnose without understanding. And if you can't, understand yourself, and you're always angry, you can't even sit still to understand your client. And I started to have a concern about our students. So I started to provide them with these techniques for self-care, because that's important. You cannot care for someone else when you have not cared for yourself, and understand that you're worthy for the care.
Right. Isn't that one of the challenges that we face as helping professionals? The fact that very often we don't take such great care of ourselves and want to take care of other people.
Right. That is correct.
Right. And I can tell you that when I practiced actively as a psychotherapist, one of the things that would always come up, especially with women who will come to me in my clinical practice, and I will say to them, tell me about yourself. What I got was always different from the answer or the response that I got when I was talking to a man. Because a man will tell me about their career, about his career and his business and all of that stuff before even talking about his family.
Mm-hmm.
But a woman will start by saying, well, my husband is so-and-so, and my children and everything else, before even talking about herself. So I would say to the woman, for example, since you're taking care of everybody, who is taking care of you? Mm-hmm. Which was really a difficult question for many of them to answer. But even beyond that, what I hear you saying is the act and art of being present for oneself in order to be able to actually help others. That can be a challenge sometimes, but it seems to me that that's where the whole concept of mindfulness comes in.
That is correct.
Is that, yes. So let me hear more about that. Since you agree with me,
okay,
that's
right.
correct, yes.
Right. So from the great John Kabat-Zinn, in terms of what mindfulness is, it does focus on the awareness by deliberately paying attention to the present moment and to non-judgmentally, that's the key. Do not put judgment on that experience in the unfolding present, moment by moment. And what it looks like you almost like a crazy person talking to themselves mentally. You don't do it out loud, but you're checking yourself. So as a parent, I get into the rant of as my kids say, why are you yelling? Because I've said something 100 times, but then when I can actually feel when I've gone too far. It's like my heart is racing. So in the present moment, it's like, oh, stop. I'm getting angry. I'm about to say something, so I now can stop. I have a conversation before I actually go on, and continue in a negative light with my children. And that's what it's about, to regulate your emotions, whether it's what you're about to say, your feelings about the matter. It gives a pause in the moment. Mindfulness looks like in terms of you being appreciative. So you can do mindful practice with eating, so sometimes we consume the food too fast. Mindfulness puts a pause to say there is, take a deep breath, reset, look at it from a higher perspective, from all angles. And then you don't get caught up in that moment where you may just, unconsciously just go down that road. You get to pause. That's what mindfulness does.
Right. So let me hear or give us an example of what a conversation with yourself might look like, or what it may sound like.
Okay, so let's do like again, if we're eating, right? I'm about to eat my food. Mindfulness is I'm looking at the food and I say, wow, I have meat, I have eggs. Oh wow. I'm looking at the eggs and being grateful for the chicken who laid the egg, the farmer who, cultivated all of that, put it in the cartons, the machines where it had to travel from. Mindfulness again is just a, a paying attention to the present moment, and you can do it with any activity. Like like I said before, if I'm going out of control, it's like the mindfulness is okay. What are you doing? I'm looking at a reaction. So it's a conversation in your mind. I see my kids. I didn't mean to. To cause him to be fearful. I could see that in his face. So then mindfulness is okay. Look at his reaction. This is not what you wanted to do. Calm yourself down. It's a moment by moment paying attention to your thoughts, paying attention to your emotions, paying attention to the other person's reaction, body, so it's all of that happening simultaneously, if you will. But it's just focusing and not being okay. Here you go again, Cynthia. You're not beating yourself up for in the moment. Okay, you've started yelling. In the moment is just paying attention every moment that you can of what is happening around you and your reactions within yourself and with others. If
Right.
I answer that.
Let me give you two examples,
Mhm.
and you tell me if they are in line with what you're talking about. Because these are things that I have just not quite long begun to pay great attention to myself, even though I have used some of it in practice. The idea that as a Christian, for example, I know that in Psalm 19, where David was writing, and David was talking about even the trees, the plants, the sound speaking to us.
Mhm.
That's in the Bible. And also, when you consider the fact that also in Psalms, where it says, let all things that have breath praise the Lord,
Mhm.
it seems to me that one can take what you're saying and say by extension that if we are mindful, we'll understand, for example, that animals
Mhm.
are really created by God and possibly also praise God too because they have breath. And that's what David said, because they have breath. And if we understand that, and we'll become more mindful of their existence and be more respectful
Mhm.
of
That
the
is
animal being.
that
And
is.
also that we will be more respectful of our environment
Mhm.
if it is true that our environment speaks to us, that the trees speak to us, the light of the sun speaks to us, we'll be more mindful because if we are not still, we probably won't even feel the beauty
Mhm.
of the existence of our surroundings and of ourselves.
That
Do
is
those
correct.
two examples fit in line with what you're saying?
They fit perfectly in line. And the stillness that unfortunately we're seeing due to this pandemic, environmentalists are showing how our air is so much clearer. So yes, it is true in terms of paying attention and being still and knowing, that we have a connection to, the universe, and we have a responsibility to like you said, the animals and everything that we're in charge of, being the higher order beings that we are. So yes, it's saying yes, thankful that yep, this cow gave his life for me so that we can eat, for those who eat, beef. But yes, it puts a perspective in order of who we are, and yes, and the power that we have to take care of, our environment.
So, why is it essential for us to practice mindfulness, meditation, other than the fact that they sound like great buzzwords?
Mhm.
The reality is that they also have tremendous value, is what I'm hearing you say.
Mhm.
But would you recommend it for everyone?
I would recommend it, yes, for anyone who has life and has breath. That is true. Once again, prana, pran, life, even the animal, the insects, the birds, flowers, substance of energy. We are all part of that. And that's what gives us beautiful life. And in order to be connected and to be powerful, you want to build your immune system. You want to have great health benefits, but it's not just for what it can do for you, but it's just who we are. It is part of our makeup. So it is for everyone, because once again, it's not about religion. It's not about spirituality. It's about who we are in terms of the physiological or the makeup of mankind. We're mind, we're body, and spirit. So in order to have full understanding, full abilities, abundance, peace, wholeness, like you said, optimal health, meditation is the key. It's a way of existence, of what we were in tune to, because everyone is searching for something. And that something is that love of who we are, of understanding that, we all have that connection. So I recommend, yes, any type of contemplative science technique of you, just like you said, being able to still yourself. We live in such busy times, we don't even know the thoughts that we have. Are they our own thoughts? We don't even know our reactions. Some of us, if you ask, have a dream, can you visualize any, a peaceful moment? We can't do that because our minds are so busy. So yes, everybody has needs the time to chill, because we are doing everything, like as someone said, part of, I think it was the David Lynch Foundation. It's, he talks about, we have this gotta mind, gotta get up and do this, gotta do that, gotta do this, gotta. So we have to shut off. Everybody needs to shut down their voice, and that's what mindfulness or contemplative sciences does, to just quiet the mind. We have millions of thoughts that flood through us within a 24-hour period. So yes, I recommend it for everybody to just yoga. It's not just for exercise. It's because there's actual healing benefits to both meditation, yoga, mindfulness. Yes, so I do recommend it.
Right, and you just mentioned one of the reasons why many of us don't do any of those things, but it doesn't mean that thoughts are not passing through us. Sometimes, because we're human, we generally have thoughts that are really not healthy. For example, one makes a mistake and begins to say, that mistake defines me. I am a bad person. I cannot do that. I cannot accomplish that. I cannot do this. But I think the point of what you're saying also is to be able to stop sometimes and say, no, you can, because you have succeeded before. You have done some things before. So now let us try and examine those thoughts and challenge those thoughts, and so that we can actually come to a place where we can have a plan to achieve what we are going to achieve. But it's not possible to do that if we are constantly going and not stopping. So the question that actually leads me to what I also know about you, that you have in fact tried to explore how contemplative services can be used to benefit underserved communities. And I'm just wondering, first of all, what you found, and secondly, how would you recommend that contemplative services be used generally by people who may not currently be doing that?
Yes.
Especially members of underserved communities.
Right. So again, the benefits working with underserved communities is enormous because of stress. We have environmental factors and pressures of poverty, in these underserved communities. And those two things, stress and poverty, are killers. And in our underserved communities, we have an astronomical number of individuals who are already in a chronic state of disease. What is disease? A dis-ease of the body and mind connection. That's really what it is. And meditation heals that. So you have incredible benefits for your mental health. We don't sleep. It improves sleep. It decreases the symptoms of chronic illnesses such as high blood pressure, diabetes, that riddle our communities. We are our communities in terms of our educational system. There's something called the super brain yoga exercise, not even 5 minutes, that it improves the cognitive abilities, and that connection so that you can sit down and be still and focus. Our children are labeled with ADHD in our communities, and they're given medications that are counterproductive to their actual cognitive development. Whereas you can be still and do a couple of exercises that really will give you more energy and focus so that you can sit down and take an exam and focus and learn. And it has increased their learning. It has decreased symptoms of ADHD. In our communities, we are riddled with overwork, underpay, burnout, especially within the sciences. So there's research, Garrison Institute one in New York, working with our teachers who do not have the control to deal with the different behavioral problems that our students are coming into the classrooms with. So education is almost on the back burner. So they're burnt out. They can't emotionally respond. They don't have resilience. So they're working. They have a project where they work with the teachers. It's called, the CARES program, where they do contemplative sciences, and they have found, tremendous improvement working with these teachers. We have the David Lynch Foundation, where it's a center for health and wellness. And currently, if you go on their page, they do transcendental meditation with, like you said, healing the healers. We on the front lines don't take care of ourselves. Unfortunately, we just seen the lady from the doctor from Presby, commit suicide because we're not taking care of ourselves. And they work with veterans and children. They work with the young children to decrease the violence and the and in research. Unfortunately, science wants to have something that's quantitative, something that's very measurable, but this is very subjective. But it works. Kids are saying, I don't know, but when I sit down and I'm still and I allow myself to just feel peace and have no thoughts, just for twice a day, for as little as 15 minutes a day, I feel different. I'm a new person. I can, like you're saying, the ruminations, the thoughts that we don't really pay attention to, that says I'm dumb, I'm stupid, let alone, that they may be actually verbally hearing that from some other person. But to internalize that, that's what meditation does. To get into that subconscious, the thoughts that we don't really tap into, but that they're underlying and preventing us from experiencing a true life of peace and of self-esteem and self-love. So
I was thinking that several decades ago, when Hans Silly, talked about stress, and from that point we've been using the word stress. And very often when we do that, we forget what he said about stress. He said that stress is not what happens to us. Those are stressors. Right. He says stress is how our bodies respond to those stressors.
Right.
And so what you're talking about, leads me to begin to think that perhaps we can respond differently. We can help our bodies respond differently to the stressors that we experience. And not only can we do that, it is important that we do that for our own health.
Yeah.
Because of the impact on physical health, the impact on our interpersonal relationships, the impact on our family lives, the impact on our occupation, our performance, the impact on everything around us if we do not take good care of ourselves. And I think that the message has been really clear. And so I would just like you to give us some final words.
Okay, so some final words. We are mind, body, spirit. You do not have to have a religion, but it's important to take care of yourself. Contemplative sciences is all about taking care of yourself, but more importantly, also healing the suffering and the destruction within our society. Contemplative sciences get you in tune with the power within yourself, that you have control over your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors. And these contemplative techniques, such as yoga, mindfulness, meditation, all focuses on things that we do every day. We breathe, right? We have postures, whether we're sitting, whether we're standing, whether we, bending down. There's all different types of poses. And that's what it is about posture. It's about getting breath into your body, letting your body be dynamic in terms of healing itself, because it does. It heals itself. We are powerful beyond imagination. All it takes is for moments of stillness, whatever you want to call it. But just be ye still and know that you are that power source. And in that connecting with oneness or stillness, you do find that you can impact and affect others, your community, your family, one another. You become more empathetic. You become more compassionate and loving. And that is what we all need right now, love. And it's all based on love. And we all need to feel that. And in a time where we are isolated from one another, you just feel love, an appreciation, and you get everything that you need in those moments of being still.
Thank you. Before I say goodbye, I'll say this to everyone who is going to watch this. When you do, I would like you to do two things. One, share this with everybody that you know. And then number two, take good care of yourself. Start with yourself. And also, maybe it's number three, remind everyone that you know of the importance of taking care of themselves, because you all have a responsibility to one another. And that responsibility needs to start with us first. We like to see many more people live long, but live long in a manner that is productive, so that we can continue to have a world that is better than it currently is, with human beings that can reach their potentials. So, Ms. Swangin, thank you very much for coming, and be blessed.
You as well.